All right, welcome everybody. We are live for yet another deconversion story. And today I'm chatting with my good friend Jen of Jen's Little Corner, or Lil Corner, we'll say. There's a link to her awesome channel down below in the description box. And also you can follow her on Twitter because I've thrown that down there as well. Also, guys, if you do dig what I do here, and I know lots of you do, I now have a Patreon, so you can now become a patron if you like. I've got 3 now. Yoo-hoo! I'm on my way. And also you can also donate, like a one-time donation if you want, through my PayPal link in the bottom there. And also there's a Amazon wish list link if you guys feel like grabbing me something for Christmas, because
because you're awesome.
It's Christmas or Hanukkah, because I was very Jewish. So there you go. And also there are links down below, 4 of them, for help for people that are recently deconverted and are having problems like secular therapy, recovering from religion, the Clergy Project, and my friend Marlene's project called Journey Free. So check those out if you are in need to do so. Anyways, Jen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for bailing me out today, because my friend Panda Actual was experiencing a little bit of, I guess we'll say, some mental issues and was not prepared to do this. So I have spoken with him, and we'll reschedule at some point. Just now, I'm just wishing him the best and that he gets through this okay. And
as we discussed in Twitter, this was perfect.
Yes,
considering the personal issues we had with organizing. Sorry, I'm losing my voice here.
Oh well, it's all that hard work you did for your video.
Yeah, as soon as after that, I went on to Angie's stream for a while. Cool. Angie's and Nadine's stream for a little while this morning for Girls' Night. This morning for Girls' Night. Wow, time zones ruin your brain, don't they? And now I'm here, and yeah.
Just a busy day for you.
It is. It is, and it is day too. So it's going to wipe out my day. And I just hit 300 subs, so I'm thinking of doing a stream this evening just to celebrate, and this evening, not everyone else's this evening. Just to celebrate it.
I was going to say, wait, you're going to bail out of the after party? You can't do that.
No. I'll be here for the after party.
Okay, good. All right. So, as you know, I talk to people about the reasons they left religion behind and their journeys from that point to becoming the atheist activists that they are today. Yeah. So why don't you kind of take us back to the beginning, when you first started realizing that this stuff may not be so true as you were told. And and I'll jump in with some ridiculous comments here and there.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to my life as a Christian, because I was brought up in the faith. I was a member of the Uniting Church in Australia, which is a group of churches within Australia that got together. One of them being the Methodist Church, which was what our church was originally a Methodist church and became part of the Uniting Church. Okay. As far as churches go, the Uniting Church is considered one of the more progressive churches. Although, okay, cool. I mean, when I was a child, while still probably more progressive than a lot of others, it was a lot more, it was a lot more traditional at that point. Okay. But, I mean, it was one of the first churches in Australia to actually have ordained gay ministers and things like that. So,
wow, really?
Pretty progressive. Well, as far as Christian churches go. But I grew up in that. I grew up learning my Bible. Although, to be quite honest, I didn't read the Bible cover to cover until I was in high school. Mm-hmm. And I didn't read it properly, critically, from cover to cover till I was in my 30s. So, yeah.
When you say that, when you say that, hang on. When you say that you didn't read it critically till you were in your 30s, you just read it with the typical, like, I've been indoctrinated type mind, and I'm going to believe all this.
I read it as, these are the things I'd learned. This is really interesting. And it's amazing when you read it with a non-critical mind, how you can actually just read over things that are actually quite dreadful and just accept them. It's perfectly fine. I've been explained this, even if you haven't, because these are verses that have been missed because they are too hard to explain.
Right.
So yeah, I did all that. My dad was director of the Sunday school at the church we were at. So he did a lot of lay preaching and he ran the Sunday school. And when I got into my teens, I took over. Well, not took over, but I started teaching Sunday school myself. So
Okay.
I was a Sunday school teacher. From then on, from there I went to being a youth group organizer for indoctrinating more youth into the church.
Oh, bad.
So I sort of followed that path. Although I must admit that we had a lot of kids come in to the youth group who weren't church, who came for the fellowship, as in actual fun of doing things with other kids, because we were a very doing youth group. We would go out bowling and stuff like that. And the devotionals were very short. So it wasn't like jammed down their throats. It was more subtle, which in a way is worse. Because if you're subtle and you're being nice about it, then you're giving them all this fun, they want to come more. And then they get indoctrinated over time. And I was part of that, teaching Sunday school and doing doing all that sort of thing with the youth groups and stuff like that. And I spent I was well into my 20s still doing that. Even at the point where I finally came out and started transitioning, I was still a Christian. I transitioned as a Christian. I stayed within the faith. When I married my husband, I was married in the church. Which some people go, what? Church let a trans person marry their husband? Yes.
Well,
they were perfectly fine with it.
So yeah.
They were progressive and they were fine and they accepted me as a woman and that was perfectly fine.
That's a rare thing, though.
I got married in the church. I went to church. I never felt any shunning from transit. There were people in the church who didn't like it, but it was a personal thing, not a church thing.
Okay.
So for me, walking away from my faith was not the easiest thing to do because I was so accepted. A lot of people walk away because of the things that their faith stops them from being or doing. And I had none of that. I had total acceptance. I even had a minister explain to me why I should never have let my faith stop me from transitioning.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, what?
That's pretty cool for a minister.
Not that I think my faith actually stopped me from ever transitioning, because my parents were progressive themselves. They were open to things. They always taught me critical thinking, which is unusual when you're trying to indoctrinate somebody into a faith.
True enough.
But my dad was very much into critical thinking. His concept of religion was very different to what you'd expect from most Christians, in that he studied a lot of stuff from Mithraism and earlier Babylonian religions and stuff like that. And he basically saw religion like there's definitely a God, and perhaps God is personified in all these religions.
Yes, I've heard of this.
And it's yeah. So he was. I can't remember. It's actually universalism, isn't that what it's called? Something like that. He was almost a follower of that, but without, while still staying within the Uniting Church and still being a Christian. Right. And my mum is fairly progressive too, in that sense, although she's more staunchly Christian because she was brought up as an Anglican. So Church of England, etc. So she had a more fundamentalist, stricter upbringing than Dad did. Although, having said that, my grandmother on my mum's side was a lot less staunch Christian, even though she was an Anglican, than my dad's mum. She was an old battle axe religious person. And probably the most indoctrinating of all the Christian influences within the family. So yeah, it was it was a different sort of upbringing from that. But my movement out of the faith came later, and it came from using the critical thinking skills I'd learned from my dad.
Sure. And
applying it when I got to actually sitting and properly reading the Bible when I was in my 30s. And well after I was transitioned and everything. So none of that had any bearing on me losing my faith. My losing my faith and deconverting came out of actually reading my Bible and spending time doing that. But I didn't go straight from reading my Bible to being an agnostic or atheist.
Mm-hmm.
I moved from there into being more spiritual because even though I couldn't accept that what the Bible said was true, because I had this universalist type ideas in my head that came from my dad, I was still very much of the opinion, well, Christianity can be wrong, but that doesn't mean there's not a deity.
Right. Sure.
That there isn't a godlike figure.
Sort of proposition.
More like a deist, yeah. Except my idea of deism was kind of different. I still kind of thought of a God being involved when it thought it needed to, but mostly letting us do our own things. And I came to a sort of religious basis that was very close to what the Minbari believe on Babylon 5. So, and not because of watching Babylon 5, just because that was my feel.
You just were able to equate the two after time.
Yeah, I can equate the two because I can see similarities in what I was thinking to what they portrayed in the show.
Right.
My kind of thinking was I saw the universe itself as being sentient.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So the universe created itself, and it was more or less our God. So in the same sense as Mother Earth is a god to pagans, I was seeing the universe in this light. And and I would look out and I'd see structure, you'd see it because I love science, see the structure in the universe like the cosmic web and go, that's like brains. It's like brain filaments.
Yeah, it does.
And
it does actually.
It does look like it. And I'm going, look at this. This is an intelligent universe that thinks in time scales that we cannot understand. This is why we're like little fleeting insects. And I mean, in a sense, it's a lovely thought. But,
sure.
I went from that to watching a lot of the Atheist Experience and listening to Matt Dillahunty, listening to Aaron Ra. And then I realized that I don't need a faith in anything like this. This is just pointless. Mm-hmm. I can't deny that it might be true, but it doesn't need to be true.
No, it doesn't.
So I moved. Right. I moved to a position of agnosticism, but what you call an agnostic atheist, but I tend not to use the language like that because I like to define myself. So I say I'm agnostic to the position of whether or not there's a God. But if you present your God to me, I will probably be atheistic towards it. Because you're going to have to do a damn good job of proving it to me.
Exactly. Demonstrating that it's not just like all of them. That's just mythology.
Yeah. So unless you actually want to spend the time trying to come up with a decent proof that your God exists, I'm not going to believe it exists.
That's right.
But I can't deny that there isn't a God that made the universe and then buggered off. We can't possibly know that. Maybe one day we can, but right now we can't.
Although the likelihood is pretty fucking slim.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even if we could discover what the conditions were like right at the very beginning of the Big Bang, you still can't say what came before. And there is no way to know what came before then because there's no time.
That's right. There was no time and space before the singularity of the Big Bang happened. Yeah. However, Stephen Hawking believed that he knew what had happened before the Big Bang. And for the life of me, I can't remember what it was that he said. Something along the lines of formlessness, and then
it's complicated in so many ways because it brings together divergent elements of our knowledge. Like we've got general relativity on one hand and we've got quantum mechanics on the other, and we have to try and mash them all together to understand what things are like in a singularity.
They're working on it.
And our experience of singularities at the moment are black holes. And as far as we know, they don't expand outwards at all. Although there is a current theory that they do. That there's a certain point where the because quantum mechanics doesn't actually allow for a singularity, although general relativity does. What they actually think is there comes a point at the compression at the point that we'd consider a singularity, that gets to such a point that the quantum foam pressure becomes enough that it causes the black hole to explode.
Yes. Yes. Well, they say the universe will end in trillions upon trillions upon trillions of hundreds of trillions of years from now with the last black hole exploding. And then that's it.
So did our universe birth itself from the exploding of a black hole?
Could be, right? We don't know.
And is the universe cyclic, which was an idea that was around when the Big Bang first came out. And it's quite possible. The point is we don't know, and none of us are ever likely to know in our lifetimes.
No, probably not. Unless we
and
find
the more we worry
critical
about these things, they're worth considering, but they're not worth worrying about.
That's right.
We've got way more important things to worry about.
Well, we are alive, and that's a rare chance. So let's make the best of what we do have, right?
Exactly. So
I've always looked at it.
So yeah, I kind of by about 35 had decided that I'm not really spiritualistic at all. I'm more an agnostic atheist, and I sort of grew on from then to being it. And like most people, it's a bit of a shock to yourself, I think, when you come out of something that you'd put so much debt into. I mean, moving from being a Christian to being spiritualistic was easy for me because it kind of fit into the philosophy that my dad had, and it was easy to follow that to its logical conclusion, which is that the Christian God isn't necessarily the God, and which is a lot easier to stomach after you read the Bible. But moving from having a faith of sorts where you actually believe that there's something more than the physical, that was actually quite hard, because you have to give up a lot of pretenses.
Yeah, I think so.
At that point, and you've got to accept that this is the one and only life we have, and we've got to try and make the best of that. But in other senses, that's very freeing, because it's what makes us step up and do things like this, where we've, like your channel, making videos and interviewing people and getting help out there for other people. And I see what we do in the secular community as being much stronger and much more for humanity in general than any of the religions ever manage. And that's a good thing. And I'd love to see more secularism. Me
too. I think Doorknob had, when I was saying that I thought it was pretty slim that a God or any gods exist. I like his little quote. He says, "I like to say my confidence in a God approaches zero to such an extent that it is indistinguishable from zero." I like that a lot. I got to use that one. Sorry, Doorknob, I'm stealing that. But yeah, that's a great one.
The use of limits to discover whether a God exists.
I see. IQ has just posted something there. Can you see the chat right now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Yeah. About the Perth Children's Hospital Foundation.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
I
do the same for BC.
State. Yeah, it's in my own state. They do an awful lot of work, especially with children suffering from cancer, and they're absolutely amazing what they do. The hospital itself is funded by our state government, but there's so much more that they have to do that isn't funded, and the charity actually helps with all of that and supporting those kids. And as I said in my video earlier today, there's nothing more important than supporting our kids and protecting our kids. They are the future. They are the reason why we need to combat climate change. They are the reason why we need to all of us work towards a better future.
Yep.
And there's something about that that's totally lost on the heavily religious, because their future is the one after they die. So this and now, they care less about.
Yeah.
Which
right.
I find incredibly frustrating.
Well, they're duped into believing that.
Believe in afterlife, there are future generations who still have to live on this world. And you're selfish and ignorant if you don't look after it.
Well, they believe, a lot of them believe, a lot of the fundamentalist chapters anyways, believe that God will come back and fix everything. So
yeah. ignoring the fact that God told us to look after the planet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because
That's right.
that
That's
was
right.
what was entrusted to Adam, was to look after the planet.
Well, I think it was more the garden at the time. But
The garden represents the earth in that
yeah.
sense.
Yeah, some people might say that for sure.
So I find it very disingenuous, especially the Abrahamic religions.
Yeah.
In that sense, that they actually couldn't care less about the planet in general.
Yep. And Angie just made a great point. Many of them just want the world to end so they can.
Yeah, they want their next world.
Will be now. Yeah.
And we don't get this in other religions. The other religions aren't clamoring for the world to end.
Mm-mm.
And as such, generally show a lot more care.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that's sadly lacking with a lot of Christians, is that care.
Yes, I agree. This is the one planet we have, guys. And currently, we don't have the technology to go to another Earth-like planet. So let's try to find.
And the only planets we could get to are very not Earth-like. And given our record of looking after this one, I can't see us doing much better on any other ones.
Nope, because in time we'll just fuck that one up too.
Yeah, we'll populate it and destroy it and wreck it and move on to the next one. We are the virus of the universe.
That's one way of looking at it. Oh, hey, Prophet Azad. How you doing, brother? Yeah, so let me ask you something.
Yeah.
What do you think was harder? I know you said your parents were fairly really easygoing and stuff like that, but what do you think was harder for them to accept? The fact that you fell away from religion or you're transitioning?
Definitely religion.
Yeah.
If you want to know that for sure, I actually did an interview with my mum about it.
Oh, did you really?
Asked her that. Yes, I did.
Is it on your channel?
It is.
Why have I not seen this? Okay, I definitely have to check that out. I'd like to see that conversation for sure.
She said it was way harder dealing with the fact that I'm now an atheist than.
Why do you think that is? Did she explain that? Or?
Yeah, no, she just the fact that, I mean, she still has a belief in an afterlife and everyone seeing everybody there afterwards, and she has to accept that because I'm no longer a Christian, in her belief of this afterlife, she's not going to see me there.
Mm-hmm.
That I will be one of the ones burning, and that frustrates her and disturbs her. But she's also of the belief that we get a choice when we face our God to accept again, even after death. So she's hopeful that I'll change my mind in the afterlife.
See, that kind of strikes me as a little odd. I've heard of others that think sort of the same thing, but
yeah, well,
then why bother believing until you're there?
This comes from their need to have a God that is purely loving and forgiving,
which we know is not.
Yeah, but that is how the Uniting Church has interpreted the Bible. That when Jesus came and forgave sins, that he put emphasis on the loving and caring and forgiveness, and that everybody would have a chance. And the only way they can reconcile that, considering there are definitely people in the world who will never hear the word, is that they get a chance when they meet God in the afterlife. So there has to be a chance for their interpretation of the Bible to work.
Interesting.
And I don't actually have a problem with that. I think that's fair. It just ignores all the other bad shit that's in the Bible.
A lot more fair than all the other shit I've read.
Yeah.
But and if that's the case, and I'm there at his feet, I'd be like, I guess I believe now.
Yeah. Only problem is, my first thing is if I die and I get put in front of God and God's real, and he goes, and I go, okay, how much of the crap in the Old Testament is real? How many of those rules were your rules?
And 613.
And if he goes, all of them, I go, fuck off, send me to the other place.
I mixed fabric, you prick.
I'm like, no. If I'm happy if the Uniting Church's interpretation is right, that's fine, because they think that most of those other rules were written by the priests and that at the time just to control the masses, and it was their interpretation on things, and it wasn't actually the solid word of God. The solid word of God comes through Jesus. That's fine. That's how they can maintain this interpretation of the Bible for themselves. And that's cool. So if God ends up like that and he goes, no, you lot are just fuckheads and that wasn't what I meant, yeah, okay, I'm happy to come in and I'll believe you. That's fine. But no, if Ken Ham's interpretation of the Bible is true, but the Uniting Church is right that we get another chance when we get up there, fuck off. I'd rather be in the other place.
Okay, but what if he says... What if he says all the shit in the Old Testament? He says, yeah, some idiot stick thought he knew me and wrote that stuff down and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, that's fine. So if he denounces the Old Testament, that's cool.
But God is unchanging.
Yeah, God obviously isn't. See, this is my problem with this God is unchanging. Yeah. God made the universe and fucked it all up and then had to kill everybody on Earth with a flood. God changed. He decided that he fucked it up and had to go over, have a do-over. And then he realized he completely fucked up on the putting this fucking tree in the Garden of Eden, and now he has to save his creation, so he has to send himself down to Earth as his own son, which is fucking weird in the first place, to kill himself so that he can forgive us for something he could have forgiven us for anyway.
That's the loophole, right?
Yeah, I mean... I'm sorry. If you're an all-powerful God, you don't need loopholes to forgive.
You shouldn't need anything.
That's right. You should just be able to forgive.
You're human. So, I get it. It's okay.
If you need to trick the devil by sending your own son down to die for our sins, because this is the loophole that you figured out, then that says to me that the devil is more powerful than God.
Yeah.
If God is worried so much about the devil and he is meant to be omnipotent and all-powerful, this devil is fucking way more powerful.
Yeah, and he's only killed 10 people according to the biblical stories, as opposed to someone else no mentions that's killed millions.
Exactly. And the devil gave us the ability to choose what was good and evil by making Eve choose to eat the apple, by encouraging Eve to eat the apple.
Wasn't he all knowing? So he would have known that she was going to anyways.
Yeah, well, God would have known she was going to. But even if you say he wasn't, even if you just allow for the fact that you can hide behind God's back.
Right. Well, he can't be all knowing.
But you can't. Regrets. But hey, because then he stops being a God. But even if you say you could, then the devil did a better thing for humanity than God did.
Well, he created great music.
And on top of that, despite God saying to Adam and Eve, you couldn't eat of the apple, they had no knowledge of what was right and wrong. So in doing it, they should never have been punished for it, because they didn't have knowledge that what they were doing was wrong until after they did it.
I won't argue with that. That's for sure.
So this is fundamentally flawed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, as a matter of fact, Aaron points that out in his book, The Falsehoods of Creation.
Yeah.
Or Christianity or whatever.
Yeah, so from my perspective, the good guy in the story of the Bible is Satan.
He's my buddy.
Yeah, he's the good guy. He was looking out for us. He was trying to give us this knowledge so that we could know what was right and wrong. He was trying to give us a way to better ourselves and be better than what God just dumping us in a little garden and trying to, I don't know. What was that about that? He makes man first and then tells Adam to pick a mate from within all of his creation. And there is no woman yet.
Right.
So
what's he supposed to do?
Go and partake in bestiality, which I'm going to make wrong later.
But I thought there were other people outside of the garden, though.
Yeah, it doesn't say
there was
that
Lilith
until
as well
after.
First, right? So
yeah, but not in the Christian Bible. There isn't.
Right.
There is in the early
versions of the Old Testament. There is
of the Old Testament with the Hebraics, and
the land of Nod. I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, but I mean, the Abrahamic religions developed out of the religions of Babylon, so they borrowed a lot. And I mean, Yahweh. The later version of Yahweh is a mixture of Yahweh and El.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've talked about this before.
And
there were two people on the panel of deities or whatever.
Yeah, and you also, of course, have Baal, who virtually got turned into Satan to a certain extent. I mean, the concept of Lucifer was sort of merged with Baal to become what we see as Satan and Lucifer now.
Yeah.
But in the original Babylonian religions, Baal was a good god. He wasn't the devil. He was demonized. He was demonized by the Yahweh and El followers, who eventually merged their one god into two. Well, two gods into one. Wrong way around then.
Well, as far as I know, from the stories that I have read based on the Old Testament stuff, Yahweh and El was actually the original God of the Israelites, which is why you have the term
El's the creator.
Israel,
that's what
Daniel, Nathaniel,
and they talk about Shaddai and stuff like that. So,
right, exactly.
And El is the creator. Yahweh was not the creator.
That's right.
Yahweh was the volcano god, the violent god.
Yep.
He was the god of war, virtually. He was their Mars.
That's right. Exactly.
And I guess the merging of that and the shift to Yahweh probably came out of some of the hardships that they actually did have. I'm not talking about Egypt, because that definitely didn't happen. But,
yeah, we know that.
There was certainly other oppressions of the early Israelites, and they were quite a warring nation. So to adopt the ideas of this warring God and then blend El into it, so that your warring God also becomes your creator God. Yeah, but I mean, in the original Israelite texts, you're not just got El as well, and Yahweh and Baal. You've got El's wife. So God actually has a wife as well. So it's believed that
Sheol or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember what her name is either. But it's believed they've kind of moved a lot of the ideas that were about for El's wife into Mary, the mother of Jesus, as far as the Catholic Church goes.
I've never really thought of it that way, but sure, I could see that.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting how the mythology has developed, and I got told not to call Christianity mythology by someone.
But it is.
But it is. It very much is. It's an adaptation of Babylonian mythology. And even now, it's even worse than that, because Christianity has absorbed so much from other pagan religions.
Yep.
That, I mean, even the cross symbol of Jesus is a merging of other cross symbologies from other religions, like Thor's hammer and the Ankh from Egypt and stuff like that, where they've used these symbologies to encourage people into it. I mean, the early church used a lot of parallels between Thor and Jesus, to encourage the young
it's the hero
Vikings
warrior
and Norse
archetype.
people across to Christianity.
Yeah. Well, they had to. I mean, if you think about it, by stealing or borrowing ideas from other belief systems, pagan or elsewise, you got to imagine that while they're going around trying to convert everyone to Christianity or Catholicism, depending on the time period, it's a lot easier when they're already familiar with some of these other beliefs, right? So if you can adopt those, and then it makes it easier to absorb the people into it.
Yeah, exactly. So Christianity is a grab bag of religious ideas. It's why Christmas is where it is.
Yep.
They adopted the pagan Saturnalia. Yeah.
Yeah, this is all the weird stuff that I
let's put
learned.
up our Saturnalia trees and sing our Saturnalia songs.
And the Yule log.
And with the Yule log.
Mistletoe came from paganism. A wreath, the holly wreath, came from paganism. It all
the symbology of Christmas, apart from the baby in the manger, comes from paganism.
Sure. Well, the manger story is all thrown in there for the whole Christian part of it, but clearly they had to make up a story for Jesus actually being born at that time.
Yeah.
Well, he technically wasn't.
Well, no, he was probably more likely born around April.
Yeah, that's what they figured. Late spring.
Yeah, late spring. Yeah.
Silly people. Well, I'm glad they came up with it because Christmas is a fun holiday, regardless.
Oh, it is, and it's great that they adopted it from a pagan holiday because as soon as you have a Christian turn around to you and say, "But you celebrate Christmas," no, I celebrate Saturnalia.
Yeah, exactly. No, I celebrate the original holiday.
I just celebrate the original, and I'm more into the secular part of it anyway. So.
Exactly. I mean, for us, it's about getting together with the people you care about and having a good time, tying one on,
and you can always
some
say
fun gifts and whatnot.
Well, you're about science. Why do you celebrate the 25th? Well, it's Isaac Newton's birthday.
That's right, too. I completely forgot about that. Thank you for reminding me.
And that's when people turn around and tell you what a horrible person Isaac Newton was.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was a believer, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He was also a lot of other things. He was kind of creepy.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely brilliant, but kind of creepy.
Good mind.
I've actually had people, especially one, Rachel McKinnon, say that we shouldn't teach Newton in high school because he was such a bad person. And I'm like, you what? Well, but his theories have been proved wrong. No, Newton was not wrong. He just wasn't complete.
That's right.
Einstein's not wrong either. His aren't complete either. But they're not wrong. And there's a difference there. And if we don't learn our history,
you're doomed to repeat.
Doomed to repeat it. Yeah, it's not good. We need to remember these things and learn them. I've somebody asked me what my thoughts of Rolf Harris and Bill Cosby were the other day in a stream, and it was I'm like, just because these people may have done bad things doesn't mean we should destroy the things that they created that aren't attached to the bad things that they did. These things were still created. I would not advocating the burning of every single copy of Mein Kampf just because Hitler wrote it. That's wrong. These things that these people created who weren't such good people stand alone for what they are. They also give us insights into these people.
Mm-hmm.
So we shouldn't tear down these things. I mean, I would never advocate, as much as I hate people being religious, I would never advocate for the destroying of Bibles. Keep them. Learn about them. We should learn about them. We should learn about these history things.
Of course.
Because, I mean, whilst the Bible's not a historical document, it is...
It's like telling someone to not read Greek mythology.
Yeah. It's an important document to a culture. And as such, it's something worth knowing about. Just like it's worth knowing about Zeus or knowing about Jupiter, or as in the god
Odin, or
Odin, yeah,
Wotan, or Bumba, or any of the other ones.
These things are fascinating. I love hearing about some of the more secular, the more modern interpretations of stuff like this. Especially if you talk to someone like Callan about her pagan faith.
Mm-hmm.
And now she worships Thor, and that. So
I had her on.
It's fascinating. You've had her on?
Yep, I have. Yeah.
I actually haven't seen that one. I'll have to go back and watch it. But I mean, I disagree with Callan on a lot of things, but she is absolutely fascinating with stuff like this.
Yep, and very knowledgeable.
And she is.
Yeah, I'm friends with many, many, many people in the community. And not everyone of that group of people gets along. And it saddens me sometimes because I almost feel like sometimes people want me to pick and choose, and I'm not going to do that. So.
No, never pick and choose. I've come to the same conclusion that, you know, I would rather, even if I personally disagree with people on things, I'd rather look for the things I can agree with them on and work from that point.
That's right.
And if we disagree on something, we can have a little disagreement, and then I go, I don't really want to talk about this anymore. It's not worth it. I'd rather keep the friendship and move from there.
Yep. Yeah, you focus on the things that you are amicably agreeable.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do.
And there's always, there's a few people who you will never find things you agree on, because some people are just want to shout at the world and abuse everybody.
Oh, yeah.
There are people like that everywhere. And those people you will never be friends with, and they're not and they truly aren't worth your time. But most people, you will find things you have common with, and you can have, if not a friendship, a good acquaintance.
Yep, exactly.
And I'd much rather that every time.
I have much more time in my life for people for decent human beings that I'm friends with than I do for shitheads.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. And I'm not against calling somebody who is a shithead.
No, me either.
I will happily do that. Or an arsehole, as you've seen.
Or douche canoe. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't say that one.
No, that's true.
Cockwomble's good as well.
I'm like, how did that ever become a word? Douche canoe. Like,
I don't know.
Something like that even come into being.
That's like cockwomble. Who the hell came up with cockwomble?
That's a good one too.
It is absolutely awesome word, but yeah, it's, and I've used it several times in videos.
Cockwomble. Wait a minute, weren't the Wobbles the little dudes that lived under English? Yeah, okay. I used to have little Wobble figurines. They were little finger puppets.
I had a cuddly Womble as a kid, and I chewed its nose off.
I think I chewed the nose off of a few things as a kid too. Or some the C word. Yes, doorknob head. Even some are. And it's okay to say the word, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't really care. I mean, some people don't like it, but I don't care. What's this pick?
There's a video of me saying it quite consistently for a couple of minutes on Notch's channel.
Matthew Randall, I'm your favorite shithead, Neil. Yeah, Matthew, you're my favorite shithead. Cockwomble.
I think the first person I called that in a video was allegedly Dave.
Really?
Yeah. You know who allegedly Dave is, don't you?
I do, yes.
Yes, the guy who drinks his own urine and thinks the world is flat.
Yeah. He's a fucking Looney Tune, that guy.
He is. I particularly don't like him because he also sells woo on his own website, and he's been trying to push this weird ass cure. Well, not just drinking urine. There's another thing that he's been working on to sell to people that's supposedly his cure for cancer.
Which one?
I find that reprehensible.
40 plus cancers is he talking about?
Yeah, I know. It's reprehensible. Anyone who woo peddles like that, as far as I'm concerned, can just fuck off. Get the fuck off my planet now.
Yeah, right. Yes, Maya. She did say drinks his own urine. Just so people know, I have done that. Not in the way you're thinking. I didn't pee into a cup and drink it. I actually used a filtration system to drink the water that was.
No, well, that's different. You filtered it.
I had to try it, right? Because I learned about it way back in the day in military training, and I had to give it a try.
So was it a bit tangy?
Actually, we used these special little pills that you use a cotton shirt, right? You pee into it, and they have these little pills you drop in.
You peed into a cotton shirt,
right? And then, it wasn't one that I was wearing or anything. Like I didn't scoop up my shirt and go, "All right, let's go here." But
that must be so much easier for a guy to do.
Yeah. You'd think, I mean, shit, we can pull it out and wing it around like it's a chain. But, obviously, it's
that reminds me of. Well, what is the song? A kid song that got converted. Oh, do your balls hang low? Do they wobble to and fro?
Yeah. Can you tie him in a
knot? Can you tie him in a bow?
Can you throw him over your shoulder and knock the person out behind you?
Yeah.
All right, that's my own little addition. But
yeah.
which got a laugh in school back in the day, which was pretty funny.
Yeah, the songs people sing at school.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're hilarious at the best of times. That's what I used to. Me and a friend of mine, Chris, when we were young, well, not younger, but we were in our early 20s, maybe. We used to take lyrics of songs and completely change them, right? Just to make them funny. Like now they have the guys that do those twisted tunes and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure we were doing that in coffee shops when we were early 20s before those guys started doing that shit. So we had a few funny ones. If I could only remember the lyrics, I could sing it, but I can't remember the shit right now. I'm written down somewhere.
Someone just asked me a question about Captain Catherine McGregor, and I'm going to have to be ignorant that I actually have no idea who that is.
Oh.
And I'm thinking they're going to look at me and go, how can you not know who this is? But I actually don't. I'd probably know if I looked him up, but...
When Neil was younger and virile. Yes, that was a long time ago. Darn it. I don't know what.
Yeah, a long time ago for me too.
Who is Captain Catherine McGregor anyway?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Maybe Google it. Let's figure this shit out.
Oh, okay. So she's a transgender activist and writer who was a member of the Australian Defence Force.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
She's still alive.
Still is, and she's still fighting for. I guess is it what to
Right.
have transgender people allowed in the army, or?
Yes, they are in Australia.
That's good. Good. I figure everyone's got a right to defend their country.
Yeah.
And PAFME TASOL, PAF, whatever that stands for. Interesting. They're first. That's the first time I think I've ever noticed them in my chats before.
Yeah. In response to me not knowing her, there are an awful lot of trans people in the world, and I have pretty much been out of the loop for a very long time because I was living my life. I was an activist more back in the early 2000s, although I'm becoming more of an activist again now, which was not expected.
And needed, though, especially nowadays.
Yeah. But I wasn't aware of things that had been happening because I pulled myself out of the circle of everything. So they call it going stealth, where you just, like, I blend in, so what? I'm not going to deal with this crap. I don't need to anymore, so fine. Yeah. And we just live our lives as, I was going to say as normal, but that's... lead normal lives instead of activist lives, basically.
Define normal.
Define normal.
Because my normal may not be everyone else's normal.
Yeah, so I did my bit back in the 2000s. I was involved with protests over birth certificates and trans rights back then when I was young, idealistic and everything. And I got to the point where I was married. I was bringing out my daughters. And I'm like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah, that kind of stuff gets in the way.
And I don't have the same problems as a lot of other trans people. I just go, I live in a state, in a country that's fairly progressive. There's not necessarily as many issues here as there can be in some of the other countries, although it's getting worse. And I generally, nobody knows that I'm trans. If I'm out in the world and everything, it's something that just doesn't come up.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that was a situation for me, and I'm like, yes. No, I'm just, hitting my microphone. That's what I'm doing.
I do it all the
time. I'm just going to blend in and not worry about it, just live my life. And then, of course, because I was actually more involved in doing atheist sort of things and that, and I then saw what happened with rationality rules and then all the bullshit that happened around that.
Oh my God. Thought, and it's still fucking trickles.
And it's still going. Yes, it annoys the hell out of me. I thought that, okay, maybe I should pull myself out myself again and and start speaking out on things in a more middle of the line sort of manner. Whilst I was a bit of a well, people would have called me a radical activist back in the 2000s, but birth certificate changes and things like that are not radical, despite the fact some people think they are. They aren't. That they are protection mechanisms for trans people. If you, especially in a country like Australia where we use our birth certificates all the time as a form of identification, not being able to change it automatically outed somebody as soon as you went to use it.
Right. And I think if you do transition, I think it should be an automatic thing that you have it changed.
You see, I'm going to get hate in a minute from some trans people.
Well, it just makes sense to me.
I agree. I don't necessarily like straight out some of the concepts that have come for self-ID. I mean, everyone who self-IDs, whether or not you're cis or trans, you are actually IDing as that, regardless.
Sure, yeah.
So everyone self-IDs. When it comes to changing birth certificates, I don't necessarily agree that, I've just started transition, I should be able to go and straight out change my birth certificate on a whim.
I mean, once you become...
Yes. I don't necessarily mean... I'm not saying people should have to have surgery, because some people can't for various reasons.
Right.
And that's not fair. So, yes, you should be able to change, but I think there should be I think there still needs to be a case of doctor's certificate or something to say that, you've been transitioning for a certain amount of time and now you can do this.
Good idea.
So as far as having a short, maybe a 12-month waiting period or something like that, I'm perfectly fine with that over it, because I don't like, whilst I don't think it would ever really happen, despite what some of the radicals think, I don't like the fact that people can abuse it if somebody sought to. The Jessica Yanives and their ilk in the world should not be able to take advantage of these systems that are there to protect trans people.
Yeah, I agree.
Regardless of whether Jessica Yaniv is trans, she is still a predator. So my position is like that.
Of all stripes.
So my position, because it actually helps non-binary people more, is that there should be a gender non-specific marker that you can have on a birth certificate, like an X, so M, F, and X. And if you start transition but you want a birth certificate that doesn't outline that you're one or the other, you should be able to self-proclaim you want an X, and you don't need medical proof for that. So if anyone can opt to not have a gender marker on their birth certificate. If you want a particular gender marker and it's not the one that you were assigned at birth, then you have to provide some evidence of that. So that's my take on it. So somebody who begins transition doesn't have to suddenly walk around with a birth certificate that says a different gender to what they're presenting as. They can go straight away and get a new one that says X. And then after 12 months, if they want to make that an F or an M, they can go and do that.
What about, if someone is transitioning, what if they use TBD? To be determined.
Or to be well, I would go with the X, because that's less administration in a sense, because that also covers non-binary people who don't want to have
I get it.
a marker on their birth certificates. Quite frankly, I actually don't know why we have gender markers on our birth certificates at all. And most countries allow for gay marriage now, so what's the point of it? But
it's just the way it had been done for so long. And you know how people are about things that are traditional. It's kind of hard to phase in and out of stuff like that, right? I don't think it's really relevant. It is, but it isn't. There's all kinds of... I think we are going to figure this all out eventually, and a new system will probably be introduced at some point that everyone can agree upon. But you're always going to have your small group of people go, fuck you. There's
always going to be people that want sex markers on birth certificates. So for that reason, we need a gender non-specific one. And X is fine. I think most people would be happy with that.
Or even undecided.
Yeah. So, so Purple, you're saying gender fluid, so gender makes gender markers are tricky. So you could go in and say, I want an X on your birth certificate. And there should not be a problem with this. I think globally people should be able to do this in the birth registers or birth certificates or whatever. Should be able to get their things changed to an X without any trouble.
I've heard that there are people that are already doing that when their kids are born.
Yes, there are some states in Australia which now allow this.
They're they're putting like question marks or something until the child grows into an age where you can identify.
Tasmania in Australia, you can opt to have no gender marker put on the birth certificate of your child.
Right.
And people are complaining about that. See, this is the thing. These things, you can talk about it being woke or social justice-y, but it's not really. This is people just not wanting other people to have stress in the future if it comes down to it. They can always set their birth certificate later to however they want to.
Yep.
This isn't a problem.
No. And all I think about when I hear people complaining about this kind of shit is the same line goes through my head. It's from Blazing Saddles. Mongo fear change.
Yeah.
That's what keeps running.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's a fear of change. I understand there's a lot of gender critical people who have attitudes of like, oh, trans women coming into our toilets means we have men in our toilets. No, you don't.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, you trying to insist that somebody like me should have to go in the men's is putting me at fucking risk.
Yes, it is.
So I just forget that. There isn't that they often.
I don't want something bad to happen to you, Jen. I like you. So
they push out. Oh well, they're never going to stop me going in the women's loos anyway. I have never, ever in my entire life been pulled up for walking into a women's toilet. I mean, I guess I have some unfair advantages in that I was born intersexed, but that's, I don't have some of the issues that some trans people have, and in that sense, I am very lucky. Mm-hmm. But even so, I don't think anyone should have hassles. I understand that there are some women who are going to get, some of these gender criticals are going to get really shitty because, a trans woman who has a 5 o'clock shadow might walk into a women's loo and then there's a dude in here. There are women who have hirsute problems.
Oh yeah. I know.
Who can actually grow full beards.
I was jealous of one at one point.
And the problem is, as soon as you start policing trans people, the people you are most likely going to hurt are cis people. Because there are way more cis people than there are trans people. And there are a lot of cis women who look kind of manly. Mm-hmm. More manly than a lot of trans women. Mm-hmm. And these are the women who get abused in public toilets by people who don't want trans women around. It's rarely a trans woman.
That don't.
Yeah. Because the trans women who don't particularly look very feminine are terrified of going into the women's loos.
Yeah.
And they hold it and wait till they get home or wait until there's a disabled loo or a unisex toilet that they can go and use.
Yeah, which can be quite dangerous to actually hold that in.
Yeah.
It can be bad.
I mean, I've actually... There are trans people out there who actually follow this line of gender critical people. Weird. They are self-defeating. Who will actually advocate that all trans women should hold it in until they get home because we shouldn't go into women's spaces.
Oh, fuck off. That is so
truly
stupid.
There are trans women who follow the line because, we can't upset these women. Fuck off. We're women too.
Yeah. Like...
I mean, in all honesty, I have been
transitioned
so long now that there are some of these young people who come up and say this shit have been women for less time than I have.
Mm-hmm.
So who's more of a woman? If you're going to turn around and say, well, you can't get pregnant, okay, a lot of cis women can't get pregnant.
Yep, that's right. My mom couldn't.
You didn't have exactly the same childhood as I did. No one has exactly the same childhood. My
Nope.
childhood was pretty distressing because when I started puberty, because I was intersex, I grew breasts.
Hmm.
So, and I knew I was trans, and then I got the shit teased out of me because people thought I was gay, and because I'd grown breasts.
Wow.
So I double hit it.
Well,
So
people
don't
fear and
tell me
mock
I
what they
didn't
don't
cop any of that
understand.
crap. I also had all the effects of period aside from actually bleeding
Right.
from
Wow.
a teenager. So yeah, I know what it's like to get period cramps. I know what it's like to feel crook every month because of that. And I also know what it's like to grow breasts as a teenager because I did that.
Yeah, I hear it's painful.
Yeah. So I suffered as shit when as a teen anyway.
Hmm.
So just because my experience of growing up is slightly different to what a cis woman's would be, doesn't invalidate me as a woman.
Not at
And
all.
it annoys me that there are people out there that think it does. It's just incredibly frustrating.
Remember the douche canoes I was talking about? Those are those guys. Or those people, I should say.
So it's still a fighting issue because a lot of people think, oh no, it's not. You guys can do all that. No. In a lot of places, trans people are heavily vilified.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of education to do out there. There's still a lot of rights to be thinged, and there's governments trying to peel back rights. I mean, look at what Trump's doing in the US. It's disgusting.
Yes, it is.
You know, medical professionals can turn down trans people just on the basis that they are trans.
It's fucking
for any treatment.
Breaks my heart. It's evil. It's utterly fucking evil in my mind.
It makes for, I think it happened in 2002, 2003. I can't remember. There was a woman in, it's going to annoy me because I've forgotten her name and forgotten where she is, but she was in the US. She was in a car accident with her boyfriend. Mm-hmm. And her boyfriend died in the accident and she was lying bleeding to death. They dragged her out of the car. They had to cut her clothes off her, and then they discovered that she was a pre-op trans person. And the medical crew that had arrived to support that woman stood around taking photos of her now naked body while she bled to death.
I never heard about that.
That is disgusting, and that is exactly what Trump's attitude towards trans people is going to cause to happen. But he's only attacking trans people because it appeals to his MAGA voters. MAGA.
Asshats.
Asshats. Yeah, that's a great name for them. Because it appeals to them, and it's a talking point. It's like, well, we can't fight the gays anymore, so let's go and fight the trans people. And unfortunately, there's a lot of, not a lot of, but there are a few lesbians and gays who would rather kick us to the curb now that they've won their rights.
Yeah, and I've heard about that sort of thing happening.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. It's not the first time either because it happened right at the beginning. Because when the original riots at Gordon Bennett, why isn't my brain working?
You've been in multiple streams.
Somebody help me in the chat. Stonewall, thank you. Thank you, brain, for getting there before the chat did. When the original Stonewall riots happened, the people at the forefront were mostly trans women.
Mm-hmm.
And after the recognition that came out of that, the gays and lesbians pushed trans people to the back because we were too radical and they would never get anything through if we were part of it.
That's what they thought?
Yeah, that was honestly what was thought at the time. That they would never get anything in their favor if they associated with us. So it wasn't until the mid-80s that trans people were accepted back into the LGBT community. And now there's part of that community who wants to kick us to the curb again because they've got what they want.
Oh, fuck.
And they think helping us fight for what trans people need around the world is a waste of their time.
Unbelievable. You know, those people had to fight for what they've got. And you'd think that they would be behind somebody in their community wanting to have the same rights that they've got. And that they
Part
would
of
be
the problem
100%
is some of these people are the younger people, and they didn't actually do any of the fighting. A lot of those who did the fighting
Gotcha. That
will
makes sense.
stand. The other side of that are, of course, the radical feminists who have a hate boner for trans people,
Yeah.
mostly following the ideas. And I'm so sorry to the world for giving it to Jermaine Greer and her ilk of third wave feminism, who I still consider myself a feminist, but I'm an egalitarian first. And the whole concept of third wave feminism, where men are evil and the enemy at all costs, I find absolutely abhorrent.
Yes. That's not going to get them anywhere with that kind of an attitude.
Nope.
It's going to get them
why they
more oppressed than they already are, right?
Well, it's funny because they see trans women as men invading their spaces.
Yes, I know. Yes,
as spies for the matriarch.
What?
For the we're apparently spies, and yet, if the patriarchy was kicking anybody, it's trans people.
Yeah.
And they see trans men as traitors to their gender.
Really?
Yes, really. But they're still women, so that if they ever want to come back, they can come back. Oddly enough, their whole bathroom ideology is such
they're not
that
women.
They wouldn't want me in their bathroom, but a trans man with a full beard and no breasts is more than welcome.
Right.
Now, I'd like to know who you're actually more at threat from.
Right.
So I mean, that's the thing. If you're going to start allowing trans, how are you going to know the difference between a trans man who walks into the ladies then and an actual man who's a predator?
Yeah.
An actual man. Geez, I apologize now for saying that because that wasn't what I meant. And a cis man. Far out. I deserve a slapping for that one.
Oh man, shit happens, right? Sometimes I've done it too. I've slipped up and said the wrong thing once in a while, but I'm lucky because I'm surrounded by people that are understanding and realize that old habits sometimes die hard. So,
yeah, I've been a cis man who's a predator coming in and saying, "Oh, I'm a trans man," and then attacking some woman, because that is way more likely. This whole idea of predation in toilets is just, or even change rooms, is absolutely.
That's where I go look
ridiculous.
for mine. You know.
Yeah, it's like, come on, no guy is going to pretend to be a woman just to try and get in the loose to attack another woman. Or to attack a woman. They are much more likely to put on clothes that makes them look like a cleaner, carry a mop and bucket, and put a sign on the outside of the door.
Not once have I ever thought to myself, it might be easier to pick up women in the women's bathroom.
It's just, and if you're a predator, you don't care what sign's on that door. In fact, you're unlikely to try and do it in the toilet.
Exactly.
I mean, it happens, but it's rare.
Sure, yeah.
And this thing is crap.
Well, Jen, we've officially gone past the hour.
We've done well.
I know, and I could keep talking to you all night. Like
we have an after show.
Exactly. So let's pick this up there, I think, and we can talk a little bit more about these ideas and stuff like that. But I do, again, I want to really thank you, you beautiful person, for bailing me out for today.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Like I said, you bailed me out too.
Yeah, because we had actually planned for her to be later, but it works out much better because you're able to get
the original plan was, I think, the 8th of January, and Neil forgot that he's got his blood drive on that day, so we'll be available to do the interview. And then we had to push it to late January, and I'm going to be away, so I'm like, I don't know if I can make this date.
But we did it today, so we actually
did it today, so we got there.
We actually have Panda Actual to thank for that. Panda's experiencing some personal issues, so couldn't be here today. So I sent him all our love and stuff like that, and we'll reschedule at some point. And Jen was like, "Hey, I can do it." And I was like, "Yeah, right on." So we made it happen today. So once again, Jen, thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And guys,
I thoroughly
remember,
enjoyed it.
yeah, me too. Me too. This was good. This was great. The links, the relevant links, anyways, for Jen are down below in the description box there, as along with all the ways you can help support the show if you do choose or would like to do so. If you dig what I do, and there's also more links down there to help people that are struggling with leaving from or leaving religion behind. There's quite a few down there, so check it out. And like I always say at the end of these shows, like the late great Christopher Hitchens once said, it's called faith because it's not knowledge. And you guys are awesome. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
I forgot to mention the